There are 42 million people in this country that need food stamps on a weekly basis. And we're saying people deliberately instead of Americans, because most of the people that are on food stamps aren't even from this country.
Yeah, so that's a lie. You'll be shocked to find out, being that it's on Newsmax, a professional journalistic organization. But no, they're playing fast and loose with the math, or they just don't understand how it works. It's also possible. That was Rob Figerty, the host right there, who wants everyone to be okay with the fact that 40 million plus are gonna lose access to their food stamps, which is gonna include a lot of Republicans, a lot of MAGA people, a lot of his viewers, and he doesn't want them being mad at him, so he's gotta convince them that it's all going to damn dirty immigrants. Cenk, what do you think?
Yeah, there's two things that I love in this story. One is the facts that we're about to show you on what SNAP is actually about and who it actually applies to, so you don't miss the reality. And the second is the Great Awakening continues. It started with Epstein in Israel. Now there's right-wingers going, yeah, wait a minute, why are we cutting my benefits? That's a good question. Let's see if we can answer it in a second.
Yeah, but also they don't want waste, fraud, and abuse. You know, we got to put the money where it matters. Like, I don't know if you saw, but earlier today it was announced, Trump put out that he's actually renovated the Lincoln bathroom, and it's now floor-to-ceiling marble. I'm not even joking, that's totally true. It was a regular bathroom, and now it's just everywhere you look, it's marble. And I think that that's gonna make a lot of people feel better about the fact that their kids go to sleep hungry.
Yeah, when you're losing your ability to feed your kids, what you really want is a marble bathroom in the White House. And
Exactly.
you think, like, I don't, then it makes me feel much better.
Yeah.
Because the elites are even more elite now. And I hope that ballroom is just nothing but golden, just
Exactly.
covered in gold. But whatever you do, do not send us any relief or food. We'll just starve over here in our corner. We're just Americans.
Yeah.
We're not even Argentinians.
Yeah.
So it doesn't count.
Yeah. Jokes aside, I actually don't really mind the makeover because it does look pretty slippery in there. In any event, why don't we go to the rest of the segment from Newsmax, where Figerty is gonna try to get you to be okay with these massive cuts.
45% of Afghanistan immigrants are on food stamps. 42% of Somali immigrants, 34% of every immigrant from Iraq, 23% of Haitians, 59% of all illegal aliens are collecting food stamps, meaning that most of the people getting food stamps from the US government and the US taxpayer are not even Americans. Think about that. And we didn't know about any of this before the government shutdown started, but thanks to Democrats, we can confirm tonight that millions of Joe Biden illegal aliens, people who crossed the border when Joe was president, are now collecting food stamps from a program funded by hardworking American taxpayers.
Okay, so there's a lot in that little video they showed you that is subtly discriminatory and also dishonest. The fact that he's just like, yeah, well, here are some countries of origin for immigrants. I'm gonna pick them randomly, like, war zones that we devastated and then brought over a limited number of refugees. Gee, I wonder why Afghanis and Iraqis would be more likely to be on food stamps. Weird that he's choosing those rather than the countries they typically demonize when talking about things like illegal immigration, like, I don't know, Mexico, the rest of Latin or South America. It's weird that they didn't focus on that. But right in your face was the biggest lie, which is the 59% are on food stamps, which means the majority of the people on food stamps are illegal immigrants. That's not even remotely how that works. That's not how anything works. And he is a full-grown man being paid probably a significant amount of money to make persuasive arguments on the news there. That's just not how stats work, buddy. So we're gonna get into the actual numbers, which when you know them, you're probably not gonna be as horrified by the current status quo when it comes to food stamps, but just understand, he says the thing, he vomits it out, and then the rest of what right-wing media can just reference that. They're not making the claim. So when the Blaze then tweets out the segment with 59% of food stamp recipients aren't even American? Well, no, actually, I'm glad that you asked the question. That's not actually true. But why would the Blaze do any fact checking? I mean, they're just an incredibly well-funded media company with tons of employees. They can't be bothered to look into the thing that they're claiming. And what I love about it is they used question mark, exclamation point, implying, huh? But didn't think to actually look into it. They just, you guys seem surprised by that. Maybe do a little bit of Googling. Talk to Grok, I know you love Grok. In any event, There was actually a Grok fact check after that, which pointed out that almost 90% of SNAP recipients are born in the US and another 6% are naturalized citizens, leaving very few people who are illegal immigrants from Haiti or Afghanistan or whatever it is that Rob, whatever his name is, wants you to believe. So just 11% of SNAP recipients are foreign born. 6.2% were naturalized citizens, which previously they would have pretended to think are citizens. I think they're past that now. We learned that on Piers Morgan, but I consider them to be Americans. I'm old-fashioned in that way. 1.1% are refugees. Another 3.3% are other non-citizens, including lawful permanent residents and other eligible non-citizens, leaving basically nobody who is someone who just leapt over the border wall and is now stealing money out of the pocket of the American taxpayer. That's what's actually going on, Cenk.
Yeah, so if you're wondering what does eligible non-citizens means, it does mean someone who was a translator in Afghanistan for our troops that came over here, and whoa, look at that, he's not a millionaire. He was living in a valley in Afghanistan before, and so now he's here, and sometimes they need like a little bit of help for in the beginning until they get on their feet. So I'm gonna give you an example of that in a second. So the only stats that to my knowledge aren't preposterously wrong are percentage of immigrants from that particular country that take food stamps, right? And that is not at all surprising. I'll get back to that in a second. But so first, on the rest of it. So yeah, what is this like constant distinction now between naturalized citizens and natural born citizens? We're all citizens. We're supposed to have the same exact rights. So why are we even making the distinction? So over 96% of the people who get SNAP are US citizens, period, okay? And then there's a small number that we just explained, right? So, but then you might say, well, look, there might be a lot of fraud. That's why John, I mean, he said 59% of the people getting SNAP are illegal immigrants, preposterous, right? But then you think, okay, maybe 59% of illegal immigrants get SNAP. Okay, now what he might want to tell you is undocumented immigrants are banned from getting SNAP. Oh, he forgot to tell you that? Oh, okay, well, there might be fraud though, because they could be banned and they're still getting it. So they did an analysis of the amount of fraud at all these different kinds of programs where they benefit Americans, right? So welfare, Medicare, food stamps, etc. So SNAP, that's food stamps, came in at #1 for least fraud in any of those programs at 1.5%. And getting out like 1.5% becomes nearly impossible because it's such a small number. You'd have to expend an enormous amount of money to get that 1.5% out. So it's about as tight a program as any government can run, and it affects 42 million Americans. And John, okay, I'll explain the Afghanistan thing one quick thing, and then I want to get to the very heart of this. So guys, we had a guy who worked here, Steve-O, did some good progressive shows for us, also was an executive for us. His family came from South Korea a long time ago, like I did. He came in when he was 7, I think, and I was 8 when I came from Turkey. And so again, when they got here, they needed a little bit of help, right? Because they were incredibly poor, right? And eventually his dad worked and his mom worked so hard, the whole family worked, and they eventually were able to get a 7-Eleven, and then that like built their family. And when we were growing up, Steve would always have to leave and go and do a shift at the 7-Eleven, and it wasn't optional because we're living the American dream. They were building themselves up. If they didn't have that tiny bit of food stamps to help them get through like close to starvation, then they wouldn't have been able to do all those things. And by the way, then get to a place where he could hire a lot of people, whether it was at that 7-Eleven or the other businesses he wound up setting up, etc. Because those handouts, those hand-ups, as Clinton used to call them, are really not handouts just for the sake of handing out. Like, oh, here's some charity. By the way, Jesus believed in charity. Charity is not a dirty word, right? But it's also to actually elevate people and elevate the economy overall in the long run. Okay, so it's none of this is evil as they're painting it. So now, John, to the heart of it, they don't want you to realize that they took over $4 trillion and gave it to the richest people in the country in the tax bill they just passed, right? And so they're gonna have to get that $4 trillion from somewhere. So they're gonna get it from the poorest Americans, the 42 million that need food assistance. They're like, oh great, we'll take it out of the mouth of babes, like literally snatch it away from hungry children. The main people that get SNAP, by the way, are children and people above the age of 60. So it's literally grandmothers and kids who are hungry and don't have enough money or the ability to get a job at that point in their life, etc. And they could either starve in the street or we could help them. And what administration after administration, in this case, the Republicans are way more guilty, okay? Say are, no, let's take it from the poor, let's take it from the middle class, and let's give to the very richest people. And why do they do that? Are they just like evil rich people? Well, some of them, yeah, okay, but mainly because those are their donors. And people that are on SNAP don't have money to donate to scum politicians. So they're like, well, you haven't bribed me, so I'm gonna snatch the tiny amount of food you got in your hand and I'm gonna give it to billionaires. And that's the sick government we're running now.
Yeah, and because a lot of Republicans are on this program, as well as other programs that have been cut, like Medicaid. How do you convince them to be okay with that scheme that you've just described? Well, they've come up with some strategies. They're time tested on the right. Here's an example of one.
I mean, this is a program that has exploded over the last 20 years. And we are just dumping $100 billion a year into a program that we all know is being so woefully corrupted and exploited. And people are selling their benefits. People are using them to get their nails done, to get their weaves and their hair. I mean, this is a really ugly program. It's weird to me to hear Josh Hawley screaming that we have to protect this.
Sorry, there was a little problem in the middle of that video. I couldn't hear what he was saying. I just heard a dog whistle going off as loud as possible. Maybe we can fix that for when we upload it to YouTube. He knows what he's doing. He knows the game that they're playing. Yep, we shouldn't have this program. Screw all those damn kids and their hunger because somewhere a black woman is getting away with something. And by the way, that's how they typically would advance that message to their audience, is a guy who looks exactly like him saying that. But I've also seen going around, maybe you've seen it on like TikTok and Instagram Reels and everything. There's all these AI generated videos of black women surrounded by 6 to 15 kids complaining about how they need to get their benefits and like trying to get one over, and conservatives then respond to the videos like, this is why we need to cut. It's all fake, it's all made up. Yeah. Nobody's actually making those videos. But now they're using this new technology to advance the same old racist message, which is you should be okay with the benefits that you need being taken away because maybe there's someone who you really hate that also is getting those benefits. And there's an example of this actually. People could speak out, or audience members maybe who get these benefits could chime in about what it's meant to them. But I also read JD Vance apparently when he was young, his family was on food stamps. And that's why he has been doing interview after interview to defend this program day after day, talking about how important it is. Because he got to where he is, and thanks in small part to that. And now they're gonna cut it. Well, actually they already are. I mean, they're screwing us over now. Everybody remember, they cut 20% of food stamps out earlier this year in that bill that you were talking about. And it's not like they haven't done multiple rounds of cuts over the last decade. It's a regular thing. They have slashed it to the bone already.
Yeah. So, John, to be fair, I got a weave the other day. I mean,
looks great.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I think a lot of non-black folks get weaves. I don't know about weaves, but my sense is no. John might be right about that whistle, right? So, but guys, why are they doing that? And why are they? The AI is a great point because that is an organized campaign with money behind it, right? Oh, let's get you to hate black people and make you think that only black people get food stamps. But as one of our members on TYT.com pointed out, Funkin' for Fun said, a lot of Trumpers get SNAP. Who are they trying to fool, really? And that's the thing, guys. The rubber hits the road at some point. Like they can do all their AI stuff, and if you're like a rich Republican in the suburbs, you're gonna go to your country club and go, I do declare, I hear the food stamps are all going to black people for their hair and for the undocumented. It's a good thing we cut it so we can get more amenities at the course. Yeah, that might work with those guys, right? But if you're a Trump voter and all of a sudden they cut your food stamps and your kids are hungry, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. So like that's why the economy is hurting Trump the most in the polls. Because maybe you could tell a story about how we had to invade Venezuela and kill the fishermen, and you get people to believe, oh, the Latino drug dealers, and said maybe you could do that. But when the prices go up, you can't trick them. The prices actually went up, right? When you take away their benefits, you can't trick them that you actually took their benefits. So, and by the way, can you actually get your hair done with food stamps? No, that's why they're called food stamps. You cannot spend it on anything other than food. So that's another lie. Oh, but what if about fraud? Oh, right. This is the program that has the least amount of fraud in the government, right? And then, and the main thing I want to tell you guys is, look, to the point that that our member made there. And by the way, hit the join button below, become a member, be part of the show. We love doing a show. You guys make great points. And to John's point, actually, real quick, Moonshine Dragon wrote in, my EBT is $23 per month. So that's what we learned from you guys as we interacted. And to be, I didn't know you were that rich. $23 a month. Okay, wow, that does sound like it's bankrupt in the country. Anyways, so guys, instead of hating your fellow Americans, I'm not telling you to hate someone else. Just find out who's actually robbing you, right? You think the guy in a West Virginia holler who's getting food stamps for his kids is the one that rigged the system against you? Or by the way, a black woman in the Bronx who is also your fellow American, who also has to feed her kids, you think she rigged the system? Or do you think maybe the incredibly wealthy donors rigged the system?
Yeah, and by the way, again, right-wing hosts like Finnegan or Smitty or whatever the hell their names are, nobody cares. They'll be like, it's free money. It's not free money. We pay taxes. The person in the holler, the woman in the Bronx, they all pay taxes. And it goes to that. And of course, many times as much goes to corporate subsidies that Newsmax was created to get you to not pay attention to. And so by the way, it's not just the media. Representative Clay Higgins, he's saying basically, I don't want to go through the entire thing, but he's saying 22 million households get $4,200 per year. You could fill so many pantries with that. Any American who's been receiving $4,200 per year of free groceries, again, free, and does not have at least 1 month of grocery stock should never again receive SNAP, because wow, stop smoking crack. And he chose which drug to reference there totally at random. It wasn't a conscious choice or a strategy or anything. By the way, the reality is that the average SNAP benefit is $6.20 per person per day. Is that even a Big Mac? I don't even know anymore, but that's supposed to get you by $6.20 per person per day. Do you know how much Representative Clay Higgins gets to spend every day in DC on food? $79 per day, that's 12 times as much. I guess he's got a bigger appetite though. But I think we should go to his apartment, check his pantry. He better be saving half of each one of those meals or else he never gets it again, that's what I say.
Or maybe he's using it for crack.
Maybe, I don't know, it seems to be on his mind, I'm not sure. And so a lot of people consider this utterly heartless and inhumane, and not just commies and libs. Bruno Pereira is the chair of the New Jersey Libertarian Party, who tweeted, during COVID, I was spending $200 a week for baby formula. That's over $10,000 a year. So what the hell are you talking about $4,200 as if it's a lot? When was the last time you went grocery shopping? Completely and absolutely out of touch. You should be ashamed of yourself, which he should be, but he already should have been. Clearly, he's not capable of experiencing that. Yeah. Now, the big update, though, is that there have been a couple of judicial decisions. One more recently in Rhode Island said that they would have to, saying that the federal government does have to pay out the SNAP benefits. And so there was a previous one that was requiring that by Monday, the Trump administration sort of provide some additional information about why it is that they can't. So now there's been a couple of different cases, including one where the judge is just saying, you have to pay this out. And obviously they're not gonna wanna do that. So this sets up another battle between the executive and the judiciary.
Yeah, so my last point, sir. Josh Hawley's trying to be a populist. That's why you mentioned him earlier. He's saying, yeah, maybe we should actually pay the SNAP benefits, right? Because why? He's trying to get actual votes, and the Republicans are so mad at him. They're mad at Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tom Massey on other issues, but also on some of the government shutdown things that Marjorie Taylor Greene has been saying. Why? Because they're like, well, you just shut up already. We have this beautiful system where we rob everybody for our donors. What are you blabbing about with the frickin' voters? And Hawley's like, yeah, but there also are donors. And why is Hawley doing that? Because he's a good guy? No, because he stopped taking corporate PAC money. So he's now going populist as a strategy, but I'll take it. I wish they would all go populist as a strategy. So he's like, no, but we got to look out for the voters. And they're like, no, we don't. We just lie to them. And the real problem, and by the way, I got this on the Democratic side. The real problem isn't that the Democratic politicians aren't delivering. The real problem is you're telling people that the Democratic politicians aren't delivering. So that's exactly what they're saying to Josh Hawley. No, the problem isn't that we're robbing them. The problem is that you're beginning to let them know that we're robbing them.
Yeah.
And so that's creating the conflict. And finally online, mainly MAGA is still like holding on, going, no, I think this is good. This is my rough sense of it, right? But a bunch of them are breaking and going, wait, why is this good? Why did we give $40 billion to Argentina, but we can't feed our poor?
Yeah.
So now Argentina is going to feed their poor, and of course Israel's all covered to the end of time, etc., and all the corporations, and everybody's fine except Americans. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. By the way, as I'm sure you guys have probably covered this, I might have missed it, but every dollar spent on SNAP benefits generates more than $1 in economic activity for a number of reasons. Any program that puts money in the pockets of poor people, they spend every cent of it. That then goes into those local economies. I mean, all of this should be obvious. Any actual serious journalist, like the ones on Newsmax pretend to be, would have looked into that and would know that. And then also, I just think about like what the point of these programs are. So like, you're campaigning and you see that there's all these desperate poor people and they feel like they're being screwed over in some way. And so all this work is done so that they'll, for instance, be okay with ICE being given $100 billion a year, more than the vast majority of the world's militaries. Because then they're gonna go out and get rid of the immigrants who are making things so tough for so many poor Americans, right? Meanwhile, we shouldn't do the $100 billion in SNAP benefits, the direct thing that puts food in your stomach. So maybe we can clear out all of the Guatemalans or whatever. You're still gonna be hungry. You're gonna have nothing. There's no money left over. We gave it all to ICE. It's so strange the game that's being played, and I really hope that you're right that they're waking up to it.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.